Hello there. So today's video is I'm going to be making shaker style doors. I've made a cupboard already, I'll show you in a second, but I'm just going to spin the camera around so you can have a look at these ones. And these are shaker style doors that were already here. We're refurbing the house and these ones were already here when the lady bought the place. So I'm going to match these for a new cupboard, which is going to be this one here. You can see it's kind of, well, it's actually built, it's quite a basic bog standard cupboard, like a frame rather than a full sort of unit with back and side panels. So just going to be two shaker style doors to go on there. I thought, you know, it'd be interesting to do a video on how to actually do shaker style doors. Somebody else, another YouTube watcher and a good old friend of mine, saying that the videos lack actual videos of me actually doing the work. So people are saying there's a lot of talking, but not a lot of actually showing how I'm doing it. So on this video, I'm actually going to show you how to make a shaker door and actually show you the process and how it's actually done. Like actually video me actually doing it. Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. So the way I make shaker style doors, which is actually exactly the same way that the person who's done that other one has made them, you use two different pieces of MDF. So you use this one, which is a 6mm MDF, and you use a 12mm MDF, which gives you 18mm if you're good at maths. So what you do, let me just pull the camera up and I'll show you. So you cut and fit the 6mm ones to fit perfectly around the sides. Let me just zoom out a little bit. So you'd have the 6mm ones going all the way around the edges, and you'd have the centre support. And these are literally just pinned and glued into position. The trick is it's getting them exactly right and sanding. You can see I've already sanded that one. So if you look at that edge, nice and smooth and round compared to that edge, which you can cut through meat with that one, and cut through a slice off some cheese. So the doors we're doing are a bit smaller than what's here. So I'm going for a smaller edge on it as well. So it's slightly different to what we're trying to match here, just because the doors are smaller and not quite as wide as them ones. So anyway, so I'm going to carry on and I'm going to leave it recording so you can watch what I'm doing. I'll probably speed it up as well, no doubt. All right then, so I just want to explain. So I've sanded and rounded off this edge, as you can see. So this edge is nice and rounded off. This edge I've left unsanded. This is going to be the inside edge. The reason I'm sanding off the inside and not the outside, I'm just getting a bit closer so you can see what I'm talking about. Yeah, the reason I'm sanding off the inside, you can see that's quite nice and round and that's quite a sharp edge, not the outside, is because once it's fitted, then I will sand all of it together. So I'll be sanding off that whole, so that piece and that piece all as one, to sort of blend the two pieces of wood in together, if you see what I mean. Because there might be a little lip or a little overlap from one piece to the other. So it just makes more sense to sand it all in one rather than doing it as two, if you know what I mean. All right, I will carry on. So now I'm going to be doing the actual fitting of the piece. Right then, so this is a Ryobi brad nailer. So these are all little individual nails that kind of attached to each other. It fires them out individually. These are 16mm brad nails, which go obviously 16mm deep, and we've got 18mm deep in total MDF. So the glue will be the bit that holds it together properly, with the added strength of the brad nails on top. Will make these pretty strong. They're not going to be coming off anytime. So the glue set's really strong anyway, even just by itself, but brad nails just add that extra bit of strength. Just need to make sure you get it in exactly the right position before you start brad nailing, because you don't want to be doing it in the wrong position for obvious reasons. Well, that looks pretty perfect. I always start near the middle and work my way outwards, because then if it slips you can kind of adjust. Well, that's yeah, don't do that. Highly recommend not doing that. Yes, I'll show you a bit of a close-up of that. So it does leave a little hole in the wood, which you can see there. So there's a little bit of, well, quite a bit of prep work needed after fitting to obviously make that hole disappear. And there will be quite a lot of them as well. But the holes are so small, it only takes like literally one bit of 2-part wood filler and a quick bit of sanding with the electric sander there, and you know, it looks perfect. And definitely worth, I mean, if you're doing shaker style doors, well, any sort of carpentry work, these brad nailers are so handy. Actually, it's one of my favourite tools for doing what I do. Well, for any job really, but in the team, I'm the one who leans more towards carpentry work, which is why you end up with loads of carpentry style videos on the YouTube channel, because I'm the one doing the videos and I lean more towards carpentry. Okay, so I've messed that up already. This is not good. It's slipped and I didn't notice. It's too far away this end. I'll show you. So you've got to be so careful because the glue is quite slippy. So if you don't do it very carefully, let's see how much it slipped away there. It's going to look terrible if I don't redo that. So it's better just to take the 3 brad nails out and redo it than let it set in an awkward, weird position like that. And it'll just look rubbish, won't it? And we want it to look good. So I'm just going to take them out. I won't bother recording, so I'm going to take them out. Actually, I will record, yeah. I'll show you how to take them out. It's very easy. It's easy as pull it off like that. There you go. I'm kind of back to square one again. Needing to re-glue. I just need some grips out my bag. Said grips. Pull out the brads. Ready to re-glue. So it literally takes like a minute, so it's well worth redoing it if it does slip and you get it a bit wrong. Everybody gets things wrong sometimes. And it's how you deal with it when you get it wrong that's the difference between somebody who cares about what they're doing and somebody who doesn't. There's a lot of tradespeople out there that don't really care. They just want to get the job done as quickly as possible and kind of earn as much money as possible. And that kind of tradesperson would have probably left that. So, right, attempt number 2. Let's get it right this time, shall we? I mean, really, if I really wanted to be sure of getting it right, I could put a clamp on there. Actually, do you know what? I am going to put a clamp on there. Just so I'm not messing about doing it a 3rd time. Crikey. So, said clamp. So if I line it up, I've got it lined up perfectly at this end, and if you can see that on video. Well, this end's lined up perfectly. Lined up, well, make sure the sides lined up perfectly. Perfect. Because what it is, sometimes you have to put a bit of pressure on the brad nailer for it to activate. So sometimes when you do that, it pushes the wood out of position at the same time. So I'll put a clamp on there, and there's no way you can push it out of position. Isn't that right? Oh yeah, bugger. See, I'm going out of position while I'm trying to clamp it. Perfect. So now I brad nail it, and hopefully that should then stay in position. So what I'll do now is I will aim for the same holes again that I made last time, just so I'm reducing the amount of prep work needed. Perfect. Perfect. Wrong end. Let's just slide it up a bit. Could really do with a second table. I've got a second table at home, just so the whole length is on a table. Maybe I'll bring that in tomorrow, just so I've got two tables next to each other. Make my life a bit easier, rather than sliding it backwards and forwards. And, rather than having embarrassing moments like you saw on the video earlier, where the door slides off the table because I'm not paying attention to what ends the most weight. Right, so you do one all the way down the length at the edge, and then one on the inside as well. So it'd be two brads, well, a line of brads on each side. Like I said, it's quite a lot of brads that we've got to make good and sort of prep before we paint. So you don't want to be seeing these holes in the front of the door. State the obvious. Beautiful. A slight lip from one piece of wood to the other, but that's what I was talking about earlier with the sanding. When I sand it, that lip will be sanded off at the same time. Mostly it's pretty smooth and perfect though. I'm quite happy with that. Shall I show you? Would you like to have a look? So I've got nice, pretty much perfect end that end. You can see pretty much perfect line all the way along. Yeah, and there's a little lip, you can see there's a little lip there, but only like 0.5 millimetre of that been gone with the sanding. So yeah, very happy. Okay, so one more talking video before I crack on. What I realise is that, I've already mentioned it, I've got this one table, so actually I'm going to spin the camera and show you. But as it stands, the door itself is bending in the middle with the weight on the ends, is kind of putting just a small bend in the door. Obviously, I don't want a door that's bent, and at the minute wood glue is setting on these shaker style panels, so I don't want the wood glue to set with the door in a slightly bent position. So I'm actually going to put this door down on the floor, because obviously the floor is a lot flatter, so it's going to keep it in shape while the wood glue dries. So I'll be doing my cutting on the cutting table, and I will do the actual fitting and everything else on the floor. So just so you know. All right, cheers, bye. So we have lots of glue sticking out, as you can see. I use quite a lot of glue on this panel. Well, it does dry clear, this glue, but we don't really want it to dry and have lumpy bits of glue all over it, making it look a bit untidy. So we clean it off. And the product for that is, well, they're all pretty much bog standard. We'll just call them trade wipes. In this case, they are called big wipes, but they're all trade wipes. So basically just like a tradesman's version of a baby wipe. Like pretty much used on every single job we do, we need trade wipes for one thing or another. So we've always got them, and they're always handy and always in use. They clean up paint, they clean up mastic, they're good for tidying up mastic. They're good for so much stuff that well, it's just one of the things we've always got. So there you go, just give it a little rub down around the edges, just to get rid of the lumpy bumpiness. It just makes for a nicer finish once it's done. You can see all this lumpy stuff on the side there. That's not so important because it's going to get sanded anyway. But even so, still get rid of it. There you go. The magic of trade wipes. Right then, so that's the basics of the door actually built. Now the actual building of it doesn't even take that long, as you can see. But the fitting of it and the prep of it and the making it look pretty is the bit that takes, oh, that's probably longer than making the door itself. Bloody pain in the bum thing. So what I'm going to do now, if I can get these bloody things working, is I'm going to fit the door into these clamps in my table. Just get the other one, so I can sand the edges, because it all needs sanding to make it look pretty. And we do want a pretty door, don't we? It's what the client's paying for. And, you know, it's just pride in your work. You like to stand back at the end of the job and have a look and I think, yeah, that's a good job, I did that. Especially when you're doing a YouTube video at the same time as well. All right. Right then. Yeah. So this just goes into these little clamps. And they hold it nicely in position, apparently, while I sand the edges. I think, well, you can see like there's a gap there. Well, there's no movement. I think I might put some more brads in, you know. It always worries me that if you get any movement between two pieces of wood, that you end up with cracks. Like once it's painted, if there's a little bit of movement, the paint will crack right along that seam. So, and the glue is pretty strong, like I said, but you know, for the sake of a few more brads in it, I might as well, isn't it? So I'm going to stick some more in before I start sanding. Just along the edges, don't need to be on the inside because that's all going to get caught, but just where I showed you on the video, basically. Pull it all a bit tighter, less movement. And for the sake of what, 10 brads. And a bit more prep filling the holes. Right, then on to the sanding, the exciting part. I always wear a dust mask for sanding. I'm a very bad fear this MDF. I have, well, in my younger days, I used to do everything without bothering with a dust mask. And you go home and then that night you feel like you've got a cold or a flu or something. And I realised later, it's just you've sucked in too much MDF dust into your lungs. So always wear a dust mask now. And that is sanded. It feels, you cannot feel the difference between one piece of wood and the other, even though you can see a slight, you can see the line there where the joint, but you cannot feel that. And even when you're running your fingernail across it, your fingernail doesn't get caught in it. So that's the important thing. If your fingernail gets caught in it, then the paint's going to go into that gap, and then you're going to have a weird, visible, sort of sunken bit of paint on the edge. But a lot of that gap is filled with wood filler anyway. I think what we'll do, we'll put a coat of primer on first, and we'll see how this gap looks after a coat of primer. And if it does look like it's gonna, like the paint's gonna sink in there and it's gonna look a bit funny, then all we'll do is we'll just run a bead of cork, and we'll just force some cork into the gap, get a damp sponge and sponge it off afterwards, and that'll just fill that gap up nicely, so it'll never be visible again. Okay, so that is all sanded and ready to go. So next video then, well, I'm going to be cutting out the hinge holes, which I'll show you more about that in a second. Okay, so for this then, this is a hinge cutting. You have to cut a hole in the back of the door. Actually, which side am I doing? This side I'm doing. You cut a hole in the back of the door for the hinge to slot into. And for that we use a hinge cutter, which is one of them bad boys. That is a 35mm cutter, designed to go with just a standard 35mm hinge. Standard cabinet hinges are 35mm. I think 35mm refers to the diameter of the hole that you need to cut. Really simple, just literally cut it with a standard combi drill, not set on hammer, which that one isn't. I like to have a hoover on standby because a lot of dust comes off. Just hoover it up as I go, just so I'm not breathing it in and it's not covering the whole room in dust. When you see me standing without the hoover a minute ago, but this kicks off a lot of dust, this one. Just make sure I've got the right side. I forgot what side I'm doing. Yeah, so it is that side, right. So remember, 4 hinges. Obviously there'll be one just slightly from the bottom, the one slightly from the top. One thing I do need to make sure I do is there is a shelf in the wardrobe. I need to make sure the hinges miss the shelf, of course. So I'm just going to measure exactly where that is. So I want to avoid 39 to 42 because that's where the shelf is. So I'll put a little pencil mark on there. If I can find my pencil. So it's back in my pocket rather than behind my ear. So 39 to 42. I don't really want to be anywhere near that because that's the shelf. Well, one thing I just realised, the shelf is at the top and that is the bottom. So make sure you get the right end of the door. So 39 to 42 at the top, not the bottom. This is why they always say measure twice, check everything twice. Alright, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the 2 outside hinge holes first. I normally do them at 8 centimetres. Don't know why, it just always feels like the right measurement. I'm sure it doesn't have to be exactly 8 centimetres, but as long as they are the same distance top and bottom. One thing I do like is to have consistency. So mark off the top, mark off the bottom at 8 centimetres. And that's where I'll drill the first 2 hinge holes. And the other 2 would be evenly spaced while avoiding that shelf in the middle. So these go pretty much quite close to the edge. So I might have to zoom in a little bit. Let me zoom in a bit more so you can see what I'm doing. There you go. How's that? Right, so I normally, so this has got quite a sharp little point on the end of it, so you can get really accurate positioning with the point. So I just make sure that this far point here is about just a few millimetres, maybe 4 or 5 millimetres, probably 4 millimetres, 3-4 millimetres away from the edge there, and get the point exactly in line with the pencil mark. And then you're good to drill. And that's exactly where I'm at now. So hoover on. This one I'm using is very old. It's about time I replaced it, really. So it's quite blunt. It's not very well. If it was a sharper, newer one, it'd be done by now. But you know, I don't do hinge holes that often. Maybe one day I'll replace it. Actually, I've got some new ones in the van that I just never use. This one always lives in my bag. But it just takes a few minutes longer, that's all. Perfect. Yeah, so happy with that. That's lovely, that is. Yeah, that's perfect. Right, so I'm going to do the other end. We do this one. I'll show you this one as well, but I'll do it a bit. I'll obviously speed it up because you don't need to see it all 10 times there. So you don't have to get it millimetre perfect, like the distance from edge, because all hinges are adjustable. You can adjust the height and you can adjust the depth. So if you're a millimetre out from one to the next, it doesn't make a difference because you set the hinges anyway. That's why I'm not actually measuring it, I'm just doing it by eye, which is fine, you know, for this. Right, that looks like it's gone all right to me. Yep, beautiful, absolutely perfect. So now I just need to mark up the other two hinge holes and get the other two cut as well. I always do 4 hinges on a door when it's like quite high. Anything over 2 meters, you need 4 hinges. You would get a lot of people who would do 3 hinges, but I don't know. I just find 3 hinges probably just isn't quite enough. I feel like you can have issues with only 3 hinges, so I always go with 4. It's not much more work as well, so I don't know why everybody doesn't do 4. All right, no doubt this bit will be speeded up. And there you have it, we have hinge holes. Right then, so this door is actually built and ready for fitting, but I've still got to make another door yet, so I'll fit both of them at the same time. In the meantime, while I'm making the other door, depending how nice you feel, and really depending if you're doing the decorating afterwards, if you're painting it afterwards, painting around hinges. If I hang this door, it's always easier to paint a door while it's hung, but if I hang this door, then the hinges are going to be in position. And you can never paint around a hinge and get it looking nice without getting paint all over the hinge. So at this stage, while I'm building the other door, it's a really good idea to get some paint on just around the hinge area. So this is a primer by Zinza. So literally all I'm going to do is prime this just around the hinge, all 4 hinges, and then tomorrow when I come back and do the next door, I'll put an overcoat on just around the hinges again. So then when it comes time to paint it, we're not having to try and you know, like I showed you, try and neatly cut in and use the brush all the way around the hinge and get paint all over the hinge. We can just go roughly around the hinge because it's already got a primer and an overcoat on it. Do you see what I mean? So you just get a better finish by just doing this, and you're just being nice to your decorator as well, because it's not always me that does the decorating. There is a team of us. I generally let the other guys do the decorating. So, well, it might be me as well. So maybe I'm doing myself a favour. Who knows? I haven't really decided who's doing the painting yet. Okay, all right, there you go. That's that little tip. Hello, so as you could see from that last video, the doors are now built. So next step is prep work, which I'm going to start now. So I'm just going to spin the camera around so you can see what I'm... So on the table we have, this is a 2-part wood filler by Ronseal. So 2 parts would be the actual filler inside, then you have a separate activator that you mix with it. This stuff, we use this stuff because it just dries really quick. Like literally like 5 minutes of mixing it together, it's dry. So we can literally, rather than waiting an hour or 2 for filler to dry, we're only waiting 5 minutes. So it just saves, most tradespeople do use it for that reason, because it just saves a lot of time. So I'm just going to show you how you mix it. Oh great, no, nearly empty, but it doesn't matter, I don't need a lot anyway. Got another tub downstairs if needed. I mean, that's probably twice as much as what I need anyway. It's only for, I'm only using it for them little pinholes, you know, the holes where the brads, where I put the brads into the actual, the surrounding frame. So with this stuff, all you need is just a little bit of activator. So I've got just like that, it's enough to activate that bit of wood filler. That's probably more than twice as much as what I actually need. But like most tradespeople, we always end up using a lot more activator than we actually need, just because we don't want to wait for it to dry. We want it to dry as quick as possible, you know. So you always end up with half empty or half full, depending on your point of view, half full tins of wood filler with no activator. Like that tin there, this activator here isn't from that tin there. That tin there ran out of activator ages ago, and then I had to buy some more activator to finish using the tin. So yeah, just mix it up, mix. Make sure you mix it really well. It's got to be really mixed up well, otherwise you end up with parts of the wood filler that doesn't have any activator in it, and you can be waiting for, well, it'll never go hard, it'll never dry unless it's got activator in it. So always mix it very, very carefully and very well. There you go, that'll do that. I'm going to move the camera so you can see what I'm doing. So it is, this is the door I did yesterday that I did the video of. You can see the other door next to it, I've already put the coat of primer onto the hinge holes. And this one here has had a coat of overcoat over the hinge holes, as well as a coat of gloss. So I think you can see from there, can't you? Yeah, you can see. I shall zoom in a bit more. There you go, that's lovely, isn't it, for you? Ooh. Lovely. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to put just a tiny little bit. I'm not going to totally coat the whole area, just literally that. See that? Just a quick once over with a bit of sandpaper, and that has now disappeared. And I'll never see that. The thing with this 2-part wood filler is it is more difficult to sand than a lot of other fillers. Like your sort of powder filler that you mix with water is a lot easier to sand than this 2-part stuff. So I generally try and use as little as possible, just purely for efficiency, just to, one, save on the cost of the filler, because it's not cheap, this stuff. It's like 20 quid or it's £18 for that tub, something like that anyway. But also save on time with the sanding, time and effort. One thing tradespeople don't like doing is sanding. But it is a necessary part of pretty much every job. So I'm trying not to get in these gaps. I want to leave these gaps as like a feature. The reason being, I'm going to zoom out a bit so you can see. The reason being is because whenever you've got 2 bits of wood that connect to each other, they're always going to sort of open up and crack when you fill it with a hard product like this. So I always feel it's just better to make a feature of the join and make it look like it's supposed to be there, than potentially having just cracks where they meet each other at a later date, if you know what I mean. I've got to be quick with this because, like I said, the filler dries quick, very quick. So I'm gonna have to be a bit speedier. I've got a very bad habit with this sort of filler, of mixing up way more filler than I can use in the time it takes between mixing it and it drying. So I always end up wasting half of the filler that I end up mixing because I've mixed up too much. So I'm trying to go quick. The only thing with quick, you lose accuracy, so you want to be quick and accurate. See, it's already starting to go hard, this fillet. It's already losing its flexibility. So I'm probably not going to be able to finish this door before it's done. So I'm going to have to mix up some more and this will end up going in the bin. Yeah, it's nearly gone. You can tell when it's going because it gets a lot more difficult to work with. When I say going, I mean going hard. Tradesmen talk, they always go, oh, it's going off. That's what they say. The filler's going off. Let's kind of get to the end of this door before it's unworkable. I suspect not. But you can see, well, you can see from there because your camera's quite far away. Yeah, too slow. But already too hard. So now I'm going to waste all that and mix up some more. Really good idea to clean your filling knives properly before it goes off as well. Because this stuff, when it dries on your filling knife, the only way to get rid of it is by sanding it off, which takes ages and is a real pain. So if you can get it off, or as much off as you can before it dries, you make your life easier as well. So I'm just scraping off, I'm not videoing it, but I'm just telling you what I'm doing. I'm just scraping off all the excess from my filling knives before it sets properly. Right. I'm going to pause you while I mix up a bit more. Right, so we are back with some more filler. I only just got a tiny little bit, don't need much for this last bit. Again, I bet that's twice as much as what I actually need. Probably more than that. Right, so I'll just finish it off and then we can get on with the next door. General rule for filling, the smaller the area you're filling, the smaller the filling knife. I am doing totally the opposite. I'm using my small one to hold the fillet and actually filling with the big knife. The reason for that, like I said earlier, the little knife, I'm going to show you. The little knife is actually covered in 2-part filler from whoever used it last and didn't clean it off properly. So rather than cleaning it off, I've got a nice clean big one. So I'm just using the clean one just to do it. It doesn't really matter too much. But in general, you would use the smaller filling knife for a smaller hole like this sort of size. I mean, some of these might need a second fill. But it might be just the odd few here and there. Maybe not though. I mean, it does go quite well, this 2-part. Right, like I said, I've used less than half of what I've mixed up, as usual. Right, so that one, we're going to leave that to dry now. I'll spin the other one over. This paint is dry enough for me to work on the other side. Actually, what I might do, what I am going to do, it has been painted not long ago, this one. I'm going to prop the side of it up on one of these leftover bits of wood, just so the almost perfectly dry paint doesn't touch the dust sheet and get dirty from it. Doesn't matter too much anyway, because it's all going to, after the primer coat, or after the first coat usually, we do a little sand down to get rid of all the lumps and bumps from the paint anyway. Right, so this bit of filler isn't going to waste because I'm going to use it on this door instead. Well, it's probably already going hard a bit. Yeah, it's gone to waste. Yeah, look. Already rock hard. Let's mix up some more then. So it just shows you, like, I've already mixed up 2 lots and I'm about to mix up my 3rd lot of filler. Just for doing these 2 doors like this. So it does go off quick. It does dry quick. Great for saving time overall, but you just end up mixing it and having to do multiple mixes, which you'd rather do that than wait an hour or two for the filler to dry. So I'm going to try very hard not to do too much this time. Don't like wastage. I'm just mixing up some more filler now. Right then, next lot of filler ready to go. Hopefully we can actually get some on before it dries this time. So I am actually using a little filling knife this time through habit, aren't I? And you know what, it's actually going better than using a big filling knife, even with all the old filler left on the knife. So I'm going to stick with it. So I can already feel it starting to go off a little bit. I'm not even just over halfway. So I'm definitely going to have to mix up some more again. Ooh, I might just make it, not far to go. Can he get to the end? Two more. Yes, I'm gonna do it. Don't need to mix up again. Beautiful. Right, there you go. That is 2 doors prepped. Right, we're back on the trade wipes again. Remember I was saying we use these for like so much stuff. These are excellent for cleaning your filling knives of 2-part wood filler. They've got chemicals in it that react with pretty much anything to clean it. So they're really handy for cleaning filling knives as much as cleaning anything else. Before it all sits and goes hard and you have to sand the hell out of it. Look at that, beautiful. No chance of that one though. You've got to get to it before it dries, and whoever did left that one to dry deserves shooting, really. So I always go over them with a trade wipe, get as much off as possible. Ah, beautiful. You only need one side that's totally clean. There you go. Most valuable lesson you've learned today: how to clean your filling knife. Right then, the next bit is sanding the filler. Even though I've barely put a lot, I've hardly put any on, it does still need sanding, otherwise you will see the filler underneath any paint that we put on there. So back on the old electric sander. So I want to use, for the electric sander, I've only got 80 grit sandpaper, which is sort of medium coarse. I'd really like to use a 120 or even a 180. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a very used sanding disc on there that's nowhere near as coarse anymore. So I'm going back to one I've already thrown in the bin, just to reduce how coarse the sanding disc is. There you go, tricks of the trade. If you don't want it too rough, use an old one. Oh, a dust mask is always a good idea for sanding. If I can find the bloody thing. There she is. Right. Right, there you go then. So, take you off the stand and give you a bit more of a close-up. So you're pretty much left, apart from just a little bit of sort of white residue, with just white dots where the brad nails have gone in. And when you obviously you can't feel it, but I can feel it. When you run your finger across that, you cannot tell the difference between the wood and the filler, which means when you paint it, you ain't going to see it. If you can feel it, then when it's painted, you'll be able to see it. So that's a real good way to know if it's sanded enough and if it's worked. If you just feel it. If you can't feel it, if you don't feel like it's, if it feels exactly the same as the wood, then you know it's fine. And all of that feels perfect. Apart from, I know I missed one. Oh, there. Oh no. Oh, I thought I'd missed one, but I haven't. It's just a bit of a blemish in the wood. That's good. Yeah, so happy with that. That's gone pretty good, I would say. Once painted these doors, you will never know they've got brad nails in them. Right, there you go. Next step then. You'll see another video in a second. Hello, so that last video you saw me priming the edges, just the hinge side edges of these doors. I did explain exactly what I was doing on that video, then got to the end of the video and realised my microphone had run out of battery, so there's no vocals on it at all, just images. So I'll just speed it up and let you watch me do the primer, but now I'll explain it all to you. So the reason being is the hinge hole side, like on this door, is going to be against that actual door frame there, on the other side of there. And the edges with the hinges are always really difficult to paint. So again, I'm being nice to my decorator. So I'm not only painting the hinge areas, so you don't have to cut in and use the brush around the hinges. I'm also painting the hinge side edges and the tops and bottoms. Just because if I don't, then the doors are going to, once I've hung the doors are going to have to then be taken off again to paint these edges, because you can't get to them otherwise. So rather than hanging them, taking them off, putting them back on again, I'll paint them now, so then I can hang the doors and they will just be on, and that'll be it then. There'll be no taking it on and off. The other good thing about it is when you paint these edges, some of the paint kind of soaks in, because that's like the cut edge. Some of the paint soaks in, and it generally makes the doors, they just change shape a little bit as the paint's absorbed. So if I hang the doors and get them perfect, and then we paint the doors, they're going to change shape a little bit anyway, so they're going to need resetting again afterwards anyway. So it's kind of good to get the paint on at this stage anyway because of that. And then the other thing that I was talking about on the last video, which you didn't hear because the microphone ran out of battery, is I think I showed you as well. So if I touch these two ends together, you see by the time I get to that end, we've got a gap. You see what I mean? It's quite a big gap. The doors are not perfectly straight and are not perfectly flat. And that's part of the reason why I didn't want to leave them on the table in the previous video, because I knew if I left them on there, by the next day, they'll be bent. They'll be almost U-shape, you know. So that's why I left them on the flat surface of the floor. So this is a big part of the reason why I like to use 4 hinges, because the hinges are adjustable, like both up and down and forwards and backwards. So I can play about with the position of the door and sort of pull the door straight just by using the hinges, so that the hinges themselves straighten the door up. So that's why it's important to use 4 hinges. I think you can do that with 3 hinges as well, but what you find is if you've got, like this one's quite bent to what like that, you see it on the camera, but it is bent. So if you've just got one middle hinge there, that one hinge is taking all the pressure of trying to pull that door back into position, which puts a lot of strain on that one hinge. So it's better to have the 2 hinges, basically halving the amount of pressure that's on the hinges. Do you see what I mean? So anyway, good idea to have 4 hinges is the point I'm making. Right, so this is primer. So that is all primed. Now, I'm now going to go on with a coat of gloss, which is all set up and ready to go. We're using Dulux Trade Quick Dry Gloss. One of our go-to paints. We always like fast drying wood paint. So it's pretty much going to be the same again I did last time that you watched me on the last video, and probably speed it up like times 20 anyway. So it'll be the same again, but I'll talk you through what I'm doing this time, where you can actually hear me. So for this, I'm just using a mini roller. Don't need a lot of paint on it because I'm literally only doing the edges. The rest of it will all be done in one go, and I'll do obviously I'll do the hinge holes. I'll do the hinge areas first. Probably can't even see what I'm doing from the video, I would imagine, but you've seen me do it on the previous video. I'm literally just going over the hinge area, the hinge holes, the holes that I pre-drilled that you saw in the videos, just so my decorator doesn't have to paint around the hinges or remove the hinges to paint, which would be the better way to do it. Because I have decided I'm not doing the decorating. I've got Mickey, excellent decorator here as well, so he's going to be doing the painting of the doors and everything. He's already painting the cupboard itself. In fact, it's already onto the final coats on the cupboard itself. Gripping with a quick drying gloss. A bit like the primer, it's like half an hour you can repaint it. I mean, according to the tins, and this is the same with pretty much any paint, and it is back covering by paint suppliers. All tins will say something stupid like 3 to 4 hours recoat time. No professional decorator waits 3 to 4 hours. When you touch it, if it feels dry, it's good to go. You do not need to wait 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it says on the tin according to the product. If you touch it and it feels dry, you're good to put another coat of paint on. That's the same for any paint I've ever used. Fast drying, slow drying, solvent, oil base, whatever. And I do, like I said, I think it is paint manufacturers saying, oh, did you leave it a full drying time? You know, if something goes wrong, so they've got to get out them. Anyway, so that's the, let me just show you. So that's the hinge hole areas finished. I had an overcoat. I had 2 primers and actually one of them's had 2 overcoats and one of them's had 1 overcoat. So one of them will need another overcoat, yeah. And then it'll get another coat all the way around when Mickey paints it as well. So it'll end up being 5 coats. Might even end up being 6 coats. So the shelving unit over there that I built previously ended up being 6 coats. Sometimes 5 coats just isn't enough. Okay, so now I'm going to do the edges. So it literally is just coat them up like that. This is the bottom, so it doesn't have to be too pretty. You're never going to see it. One thing you've got to be really careful of is making sure there's no overlaps onto the surface going at an angle from the one you're painting. Otherwise you end up with a ridge of paint there, which just looks awful. And you get a lot of that from DIY decorators. You know, people who think that if they know how to use a brush, they know how to paint, you know. We get a lot, well, I see a lot of that. A lot of them ridges where people don't just go over the edge again like that, just to make sure that the paint's all smooth and flat on the adjoining side. Can't even see some professional decorators doing it. None that work for me, I might add. Ah, look at that. See, that is beautiful. I'm going to show you that now, actually. So remember we was talking about the visible line that you can see between the 2 pieces of wood. You can just see it on that one that's only had a primer coat. But you go to the overcoat one and that line is gone. So we are happy with how the bits of wood have joined together. Definitely we're putting the extra brad nails in there and quite a bit of extra glue to make it disappear. So you would never know that was 2 pieces of wood looking at it like that. So yeah, really happy with how that's gone. That's really good. I thought I might have to do a bit of extra caulking. Decorated cork's like a flexible product. You just kind of squeeze it in and it's like water based, so you can then sponge it off and make it look neat afterwards. I mean, it wouldn't have been a big deal if it was visible, that join. It would have just been an extra bit of caulking needed, but to caulk it would have took me 10 minutes and it's about an hour drying time on it. Another thing I need to be careful of as well, because I've rounded the edges off, I need to make sure I do get all the way around the edges. I'm just going to show you what I mean about these ridges of paint. I've got a nice big one there, just so I can give you show you know exactly what I'm talking about. So do you see? Can you see on? Yeah, you can see very nicely on it. Can you see how there's a nice ridge of paint there, where I've painted that surface and the paint's gone onto the adjoining surface. If I leave that and this is going to be the, well, this is the back of the door, but it could have been just as easily the front of the door. That would look awful. A big chunk of paint like that on the front of the door, even the back of the door. So that's why you've got to be so careful to check your adjoining surfaces as well to make sure that no paint gets on them. So now it really is just as simple as smoothing it out. And as you can see, smooth it out and it's gone. If I didn't see that, for example, and we got to the final part of the job, I would end up having to sand that off and repaint that area again. Probably even repaint the whole door again, because just so everything's consistent. So it's so important to see these little ridges like that. So you really got to make sure you haven't got any lumps and bumps in the paint for that sort of professional standard finish anyway. Like I've already talked about DIYers, but a DIYer would leave that ridge of paint, get to the end of the job and think they've done a great job. That's just what DIYers do. And then we, us as the professional, would then go there and be like, oh yeah, you've done a great job there, because you don't want to knock their work, you know what I mean? But in the back of your mind you think, God, that looks awful. But, you know, that's what you pay your money for with a professional decorator. It is that attention to detail, and not just the attention to the knowledge of knowing things like that and what to do to avoid just little things like ridges of paint like that. It depends what sort of standard you're aiming for, I guess. I mean, the lady we're working for now, she's obviously a lady with some money to spend, but more importantly, she's got she likes things done properly. Let's put it that way. Which is exactly the kind of client we like. We like people who want things done properly, because we want to do things properly. But you know, to do things properly takes time, and time costs money. So what a lot of people don't understand. You can, I mean, I'm sure she could have got somebody else in at half the cost to do the job I'm doing now, but she would not have been happy with it. It would have been 3 coats of paint, no filler, no care and attention to the joins, ridges of paint everywhere, you know what I mean? So you get what you pay for at the end of the day. Can't sound like I'm really expensive. I'm actually not. We're actually about, well, we're slightly above average in terms of what we do, in terms of money per day, etc. But what I would say we are better than anybody in terms of value for money. I would put us up against any company out there in terms of value for money. What we do for the money we charge is what I class as value for money. All this attention to detail, knowledge, everything going into what we do. And I've got a really quality team as well, and some really good guys. So the money you pay for us versus the quality you get, value for money, is, well, nobody will beat it. You won't get another company that do what we do for the money we charge. Maybe I should put my prices up. So that is nearly done. Last little edge. This is the bottom, so you're never going to even see the bottom. Again, this is just a little shortcut that your sort of standard budget and Scarpa person wouldn't even bother painting the bottom, you know. And then because the bottom's got a curve on it, you'd have an unpainted curved bit at the bottom that would be visible. Alright, there you go. So that is first overcoat and primer coat. And hopefully my microphone hasn't run out of battery this time. Right then, so we are now at some time later. Half an hour, 45 minutes after the last video. And it is now already touch dry, which means it's ready for recoating. So I'm just going to get my tray and my roller back on. Sorry, Mickey had borrowed the tray and the roller. Well, I say borrowed, it's his tray and roller. I'm the one borrowing it. So just another cut. So I'm not going to talk over this one. I'm going to do it. I'm probably speed it up like times 20 or something. You already know what's going on. All right. Right then, so these doors are all ready for hanging. All the bits that need painting that can't be painted once they're hung are done. Obviously they're built, they're the right size. However, it is now home time on a Friday. So these will be left over the weekend like this, and Monday I'll do another video of me hanging them. Which is going to be a bit tricky because the space that it needs to go into is quite tight. So that's the space I've got to work with. I don't mean tricky in hanging them, but tricky in getting a video. So I'll maybe get a video from here perhaps, I don't know. Anyway, as you can see, this is pretty much, this has had its third coat, the cupboard now. Mickey's been doing that while I've been doing the doors. And that should be fourth coated and ready for Monday when I come to hang them. And it'll just be painting the rest of the doors. Obviously the walls need painting as well. Anyway, so this is why I've laid them, again, I've laid them flat like this. I've put these bits underneath just so that the painted area is not touching the dust sheet. The dust sheet is exactly that, it's dusty. So I'll lay them down on a flat surface again because I don't want them warping over the weekend. I'll leave them on any sort of angle or any sort of left on the table or propped up on the clamps like they were earlier. By the time I come back on Monday, they're going to be like all over the place. So at least if you lay them down flat, then hopefully there's a chance of coming in Monday and they are still flat. Okay, so next video on Monday then. Thank you. All right, hello. So Monday morning, left them over the weekend to fully dry and all that business. So we're ready for hanging today. Now you will see on the video, I hope, if you're in the right position, this door is nice and straight, looks lovely, perfect. I just want to show you what I've talked about previously, where MDF especially is quite bad for it, where it does change shape. So this door, as you can see on the video, hopefully you can, is bent, curving like that. That's, yeah, there's not really, it's something you do sort of struggle with MDF. No matter what you do, there's no way to stop it. It does just warp sometimes, you know. Well, not sometimes, a lot of the time. I'm just going to take you off so I can show you properly. Right, so hopefully you can see the way. Oh yeah, you can definitely see that. So it kind of bends out on one end, doesn't it? And then I'm just kind of showing you exactly, I mean, I've spoke about it already, but this is why we have to do 4 hinges. 3 is just not enough because we need to pull this door back into a straight position using the hinges. Like 3 hinges on that just wouldn't do the job that it needs to do. Do you see what I mean? So anyway, so yes, so you are aware that, well, you can see that it's bent. So hopefully we'll be able to show you while I'm hanging it and setting it, just how well the 4 hinge system works in pulling that straight again. Okay, so that is the next job, hanging the doors. Right then, so hinges we're using, these ones, well, actually I've got 2 different ones here, but they're actually the same hinge in 2 different packages, and I realise. Anyway, what I like about these hinges is they have the 4 separate holes. A lot of hinges only have 1 hole there where the screws go in, where these ones have 4, so 2 either side. Let me show you one that's already open actually. If you look inside your kitchen cabinets, for example, you will notice that they've only got the one screw either side on the bit that's actually inside the cabinet rather than 4. So that's why I use these ones. They're just a bit stronger. These ones are from Selco, the builder's warehouse. I'm sure you can get them anywhere really, like online. But definitely if you're doing cabinet, big sort of style doors like I'm doing, I would recommend the 4-hole versions like I've got. So I just want to show you how they adjust. So you have, can't get it too tight, 1 second. So if you undo this back screw, you can slide forwards and backwards, moving the door. Right, if the door is closed, so imagine my hand's the door. So then you're sliding the door forwards and backwards in comparison to the actual frame of the cabinet, which is really handy. These holes here, see how they're oblong shape rather than round. You would fit these first, and then you wouldn't tighten the screw fully, then you can slide them up and down the screw a little bit to adjust the height. Then once you've got it in the perfect height, that's when you put the 2 screws in the round holes to lock it in that position. So you've got height adjustable, depth, like height adjustable up and down, depth adjustable that way, and then this screw here gives you an adjustment. You see how it moves in and out? Like that, look. So you're also adjusting the door's side to sort of move backwards and forwards, so I've got that screw loose. So you tighten that up a bit to see a bit better. So you can move the doors in and out in comparison to the side panels as well. So you're kind of moving them that way. So you've got 3 different directions you can adjust the hinges into. They're really good hinges these are. So you can get the hinges roughly in the right place or when fitting, and you adjust using the hinge itself to exactly the right place. So there you go, a little lesson on hinges for you. Right then, so the next bit really is as simple. We just put the hinges in the holes, and we use the matching screws that come with them because they are the right colour and the right depth. And we screw them all in, which I'll do now. I'll speed it up. I might do the first one. I'll do the first one slowly now so you can see it. And then I'll do the rest of them speeded up so you don't have to watch the same thing over and over again. Always be careful with this. Remember the doors are 18mm thick, so you've got to make sure the screws you're using are 18mm or less, which these are 15mm, so these are perfect, plus a little bit of depth on the actual hinge. So do not make that sort of common mistake that people make where they use a screw that's slightly too big, and then they lift the door up after fitting all the hinges and realise there's loads of screw heads poking through the front of the door, ruining their previous work. Okay, so just change my head on my drill, on my impact. Worse. Okay, these screws have got quite a small cross section, so I need the correct size bit to screw them in. So I'm just going to get the correct size bit. All right, we now have the correct bit blurry, I think, but the smaller size impact drill bit for actually screwing these particular screws in. So we'll put that in and then we'll get cracking. I'll just screw this one in for you to have a look at and then go from there. I'll zoom you in a bit actually as well. How is that? One thing you do need to make sure when you're doing this is you don't want the hinges to go at an angle, because it just makes it more difficult when it comes to adjusting. So you want to get it, doesn't have to be 100% exactly straight at a perfect angle to the door, but I mean obviously you want it as close to as possible. This drill impact bit is not the right size. Just about doing the job. I'll do the job for the purpose of this little video, and then I will change it to one that's a bit different. There you go. Right, so that is one pretty much fitted, apart from at least tightening up with a better impact bit. So I'm going to pause you, change the bit, and I'll do the rest of them speeded up. Yeah, so the doors are not hung. I'll literally just put them in position just to see how well they will fit together. And you can see there's a huge small gap at the top between the 2 doors, big gap at the bottom, big gap at the top of one door, no gap at the top of the other door. But again, this is all down to the hinges, like I was saying earlier. Once the hinges are set, these gaps will either disappear or they will be consistent top to bottom, and they will line up at the top of each other rather than having 2 different heights. So the trick with setting the doors is just getting the 2 doors consistent with each other. And so they actually open and close, of course, which is always the main objective. You've got to be quite careful. One thing that you've got to look out for as well, which is really common, is never assume the floor itself is flat. Because these floors floors pretty much always go at an angle. So the floor might slope upwards away from the door. In which case, if you put a little gap on the bottom of the door, by the time you get here, that gap's gone and the door's then brushing against the carpet. You see what I mean? So you've got to be quite careful and make sure that you are doing the door at the correct height for the open position and the closed position, not just the closed position. So you'll spend ages getting it right, getting it perfect, then realise you've got it all wrong. So it's worth just getting a little spirit level on the floor and just seeing where you're at with the slope on the floor. Okay, so right, I'm going to start hanging these bad boys in. Now I know that they're actually in the right size. They will work once the adjustments are made on the hinges. They will work pretty nicely. Unfortunately, like I said on the other video, there's not really any space for me to get close with the camera at this stage. I might adjust you into the landing a bit in a little while so you can get a better close-up. Anyway, for now that'll do. I'm going to do another video in a second. Well, so we'll get it to the correct height. We'll get it roughly to the right depth where we want it. So that feels like it's pretty much exactly where I want it. Snap that over. Get a screw in the middle of the oblong one so it can be adjusted up and down. So I'll get one in that one, I'll get one in this one as well. We'll get one in the top, but I can't reach it. I'd always prefer to go straight to the top. Right then, so I'm just going to do one more screw on each of the other two hinges. I'm going to do one screw in each hinge to start with, until I'm sure that the hinges are in the right position. You start putting loads of screws in, it makes it very difficult to adjust the height and the position later. So just one screw to start with is enough for each hinge, because you might have to adjust quite a lot and put a new screw hole in, otherwise you end up with loads of screw holes there. But we will see once the 4 screws are in and the hinges are locked in position, then we will know more if we're in the right position or not. Anyway, let me show you this as well actually. This is the bendy door, you know, the door we're looking at in the bedroom. So look, nicely touching the wood, touching the wood, touching the wood, and you get to the top and we are like about 1 centimetre away from the wood because the door is bent. So again, we pull it back into position using the hinges. That is the idea. Okay, so I'll put you back on the stand and I'll screw that in. I'll get a bit of a close-up on it so you can see how the hinge being screwed in pulls the door into position. Hopefully. There you go. So now we have a door that's actually lined up top to bottom and it looks pretty straight. Go back a bit so you can see the whole door, hopefully. Alright then. So this is the moment of truth. We remove the chisel from the bottom and we close the door and see what happens. And you know, that looks pretty good. It opens and closes. Objective number 1 complete. However, I am not going to put any more screws into the hinges just yet. I'll put the other door on first. Now the reason for that is because I may need to adjust dependent on the position of the other door as well. So for now, just the 4 screws is enough to hold it in position. And we put the other door on. Same process as this time. Just put the other door on and then adjust accordingly. Right then, so both doors semi-hung. Just check, see if you can see what I'm going to talk about. You see the, I'll show you a bit more close up. You see the top the left-hand door is a bit lower than the right-hand door, so the left-hand door, as we know, needs to go up a little bit anyway. The right-hand door, however, also needs to go up as much as we can, because even though it's higher than everyone, we are still brushing the carpet. So there's not really much further up we can go on that one. We could put that down to, let's say, a measuring error on my part. I think maybe I should have done the height of the door just a few millimeters less than it is. Might be okay. I think we can make it work, because when worst comes to worst, all we'll do is we'll sand a few millimeters off the bottom of the door and then rehang it. But let me just see if we can get it right with the hinges first. We don't want it touching the top, obviously, the shelf at the top, and we don't want it touching the carpet, ideally, do we? So let's adjust first and see what we can do. And if needed, we'll take the door off and I'll sand a few millimeters off the bottom of the door with the electric sander. Maybe you can see a bit better from there. Actually, I'll do a little zoom in on this top hinge so you can see what I'm doing more accurately. Let's go even closer. Oh, look at that. That is perfect. Hopefully my big fat head's not in the way. Probably is. So, like I said, I'm just removing the existing screw. Totally. And I'm going to refit it, but pushed to the top of that oblong hole there. So a bit higher up. But I'm not going all the way in, so it's still loose. Then I can in theory, I can lift the door up all the way to that shelf. See what I mean? So I don't know if you can see the gap there. I'll just check, see if you can or not. You can't. Let me show you the gap. Alright, so you see that gap between door and shelf? Oh, that's perfect. So I'm going to slide the door up on the existing screws all the way up until that gap has gone, and then tighten up the screws. And then the weight of the door will then pull it away from the shelf just a little fraction. So yeah, that gap's quite a bit smaller now. I'll just tighten the other two screws up, which you can't see me doing obviously, but it doesn't matter. Alright, let's give that a go. Zoom you out a bit again so you can see. Right, so, moment of truth, we can open and close the door and see if one, it touches the top of the shelf, which you don't want. I want it to brushes on the carpet. Right, perfect on the shelf above. And the thing is, once the plastic on the floor is gone and the tape's gone out of the way, that'll be perfect on the carpet as well. Doesn't matter if it lightly brushes it, as long as it's opening, as long as you can open and close it. So actually, yeah, that's pretty good. I think we're happy with that. I know we're happy with that. Yeah, that's good. Right then, I'm just going to do a similar thing with this left-hand door now to get that as close and tight to the top as the other one, because we do want the heights to be matching. It looks a bit odd if you've got two different heights of doors, which obviously we want it to look good. This is why I was saying only use 4 screws to start with, because you just end up adjusting, you end up with loads of holes in the framework where you've adjusted the screws so many times. And once you get to a point where you've got so many holes, you can't actually, there's nothing left to screw into. You see what I mean? So you're weakening the strength of the door. You know, a few times is okay, which is what we're doing now, but if you put all 4 screws in, you do just a lot more work and time and effort, and you kind of compromising the strength of the area the hinge is screwed into. That's perfect. That is beautiful. Let's have a little look from over there. Oh yeah, that is nice. That's real nice. Really happy with that. So the gap is pretty consistent across the top now. Obviously this gap we'll deal with next, that can't stay that big. But we are at the right height. So I'll start with the height and then we go depth and width and do the other adjustments after we've got the height right. So now I know that I'm happy with these heights, so I can put the rest of the screws into these 8 hinges. So I've got 3 more screws to go in for each hinge. So I'm going to do that now, probably times 20, so you don't have to get bored watching me doing it. I'm just going to show you now why we paint the inside edges. But you can obviously see why we paint the hinge, around the hinge, because like getting a brush neatly around there is next to impossible, because you've got a bit that actually goes behind the hinge like that. We'd never be able to paint that without taking the hinges off, which I don't really want my decorators touching my hinges, you know. So you see this back edge that we painted, like again, impossible to paint that while it's in position. We can paint this half that's visible, but what about the other half that's not visible? I can't paint it from this side. We can paint this bit, but there's going to be like ½ centimetre of unpainted edge there that no decorator can get to without removing the doors, which yeah, they don't want. We're only part of the way through setting the doors. We've only done the height so far, so if they take them off, it's going to have to all be reset again. So again, that's why I'd rather just paint them in advance. So the same with this side as well. You've got half that you can paint, and it's probably not so bad with this side because look, it's more accessible because there's no other door frame in the way. But even so, just do it anyway. If we're doing the other one, we'll do that one at the same time, you know. And so this next video, we're going to be adjusting the depth away from the cupboard. Now the hinges are all tight, you will probably see, let me show you. This one closes okay, but this one pops up. And the reason for that is because the door itself is too tight to the frame of the actual cupboard. I'll show you what I mean. Now you see how the back of the door is very tight to this architrave here. I feel like it's touching the architrave on this back edge, and that's what's stopping it closing all the way. So again, that's very easy to sort out, and it'll be a part of sorting out the gap between the 2 doors. It will naturally happen with that anyway, because it all needs to come in. Let me just put that to the test. I'll show you how we adjust that as well. Let's do a little zoom for you. Just on this one hinge so you can see what I'm doing. So this one, to adjust the door this way, away from the frame, and you're literally just screwing that screw in. You can see on the video how it's pulling away from this distance from here to here is now much bigger. So we do that on all 4. Actually, we want a consistent size distance, so we'll try and get it consistent just by eye, as long as it looks visually right. And this is also closing up that gap between the 2 doors at the same time, as well as getting the door away from the architrave, so the door will actually close properly. In theory. Okay, we'll get you on that top one as well. Right, let's see if it closes now. Perfect. Yeah, it was that all along. So I'm tinkering away with the hinges, and it was something totally different. So I mean, it's like this with cabinet doors, cupboard doors, cabinet doors, whatever. There's always tinkering. You have to tinker with them until you get it right. Which is, again, like I said, why I don't want the decorators taking the doors on and off if I can help it. So if you look now, this gap between the 2 doors has now been naturally reduced because that side has been moved towards the right-hand door. So now I will adjust the right-hand door to close that gap even further still, and also even the size of the gap between the 2 doors. Now you can see why I like these hinges so much, because they are and very versatile and very adjustable to get things exactly where you want them with, well, not minimal fuss. There is always fuss, isn't there? It's always going to be a bit of a chore to get it exactly right. Right then, so I think we are set with the doors. I think we're happy with that. Well, I think we're happy with that. We will see once it's painted, once this plastic's off the floor and the masking tape's out of the way. Yeah, I'm not going to adjust any further. I keep saying it's going to change shape anyway once it's painted. I'll have to do minor adjustments again afterwards anyway. I may end up shaving the bottom of that door off just by a millimetre or two later. We'll see how it goes once it's painted as well. Okay, on to painting. Then, so ready for priming. I just need to put a bit of plastic or something down on the carpet there, so I don't want to ruin the carpet as well. We're going to be using Dulux Trade Quick Dry Wood Primer Undercoat. It's like a combination of primer and undercoat in one. Dries really fast, covers well, it's just a really good paint. So very happy. We use this all the time for any time I'm painting MDF, it's what I use. Hello again. So ready to start painting. So I'm just going to zoom you in on what I've got so far. So I have a little tray and a little mini roller, which is what you use for getting most of the paint on. Combine that with a brush in some areas, which I'll show you what you'll see me doing as well. Combined with this very expensive dust sheet that, well, put it this way, I've worked with literally hundreds of decorators over the years, and pretty much all decorators love to put a rubble sack under a door when they're painting. They're just, well, it's just ideal, you know, you can never fit a proper dust sheet under a door to catch the paint. There's nothing wrong with putting a rubble sack there as your dust sheet. So I'm going to do exactly the same as what most people do, as long as you position it right. The great thing with it, if you get some paint on the rubble sack, it doesn't matter, look, it's already been used for painting. And you can slide it from one door to the other easy enough. So. Anyway, right, so this video is already taken, well, it's already much longer than I was planning on it being. So I'm just gonna crack on with painting. I'm not gonna stop and talk to you. I'm just gonna get it painted and you can watch what I'm doing. I'll probably speed it up times 20 or something anyway. So I think we've got other videos on YouTube and whatnot showing people how to paint. So I don't think they need to watch me do this one. So times 20. Right, hello. I said I wasn't going to talk, but I just realised I can give you a little tip here on how to avoid runs when painting. I'm going to show you how not to do it first. So first thing, this is what so many DIYers do. Like non-professional painters, they will brush like that into the corner, brush up like that into the corner, then brush into that corner, brush into that corner. Something like that. And then, I don't know if you can see, let me show you. So this, what happens when you do that is you get a big build-up of paint in the corner like that. I don't know if you can really see that, but there is a run already starting. Oh yeah, you can just see it there. See the big lump of paint there? That's going to run. And you have a nice drip of paint coming down the door if I don't keep an eye on it and stop it from happening. So what you do is you can put your paint on like that. You've always got to brush away from the corners. So you start in the corner and brush away, and then you're getting all the paint out. It's always the corners, especially the bottom corners as well. Especially the bottom corners where you get build up of paint, and that's where you get your runs. So you always brush away from the corners rather than into the corners. There's a little tip for you. All right, back to times 20, 100 miles an hour. Then that is primer and undercoat done, so 2 coats. So we do, I think I showed you on an earlier video, we use a 2-in-1 water-based product by Dulux, primer and undercoat in one tin. So where you just do 2 coats of that and it acts like a primer and then it undercoats at the same time. See what I mean? So that is now ready for the overcoats, which we're going to be using a fast drying gloss, again by Dulux. Maybe I have it here. Nope, it's downstairs. I'll show you it later. Anyway, you can see, you just about see it still looks a bit wet. The paint was not dry yet. You still see it looks a bit patchy still. Totally normal. You know, this is just a primer and an undercoat. It's going to need at least 2 more coats of gloss, maybe 3, sometimes even 4 coats of gloss over the top to get that perfect finish. And I think I mentioned before, but this shelving unit I built in the corner prior, this had 6 coats in total, and 4 coats of gloss and 2, a primer and an undercoat. So we just generally paint until it's done. You know, sometimes it depends how thick you put the coats on, obviously. Sometimes I did think it depends on the wood itself. Like every bit of wood is slightly different. Temperature, you know, humidity levels. I bet there's loads of things that go into how many coats you need. I generally try and put the coats on quite thick to try and reduce the number of coats. So I usually do 5, so it'd be 2 undercoats and then 3 overcoats. But we'll see how we go. If we need more, isn't it? Anyway, right, so next video then will be doing the glossing. Okay, bye-bye for now. Hello there. So we are on the next day. So it's had its primer and undercoat, and we are now ready for overcoats. So we are going for Dulux Trade Quick Dry Gloss. So gloss gives it a bit of a shiny finish. It's still just white, the same as the undercoat and primer coat. Quick dry, because we like to get, don't want to wait. Some of the other types of paint, you need to wait like overnight for the next day for it to dry, like 20 hours or something. So we always use the quick dry stuff, just a lot better. Plus it's a bit nicer. Those like the more oil-based and solvent-based ones have got higher VOCs, so they're a lot worse for you if you breathe in the fumes, where these are a bit more natural, like water-based ones. The whole industry really is going away from the oil-based and the solvent-based ones and going more towards the water-based, like the one we got there. Anyway, right, I'm going to get cracking. I'm going to stop talking. And it's just the same as what I was doing on the other coats, so I'm probably just going to speed it up. But it's just a different paint. But it'll be 2 or 3 more coats of the gloss. Right then, so back to normal speed. I just wanted to do a little video just to show you, well, something I should have explained earlier actually. A bit of the process with trying to get a good professional standard finish is we're aiming to get a consistent texture in the paint across all surfaces. So I'm just going to explain why and how we do that. Obviously, like, to an inexperienced painter, this would be how they paint. They paint the whole thing, brush it on, and then you end up with, let's see if I can get a better view. See how you got all them streaks in the paint, like brush marks? We're trying to avoid that, which is why we use a brush and then a roller. So effectively what I'm doing is I'll show you. So I'm using the brush to get the paint into the areas the roller can't reach. And the roller can't get into them corners like that. So this bit, all I'm doing is, really I'm only painting the very edge with the brush, just so it's actually got paint on it, because the roller won't get there. So all this rough looking texture that's around that you can see, I then go over that with the roller. So I'll show you. Just load my roller up. So as I'm painting with the roller, so this looks rubbish, this is a terrible texture. So as I'm painting with the roller, I'm going as tight to them edges as I can to get rid of that brush texture at the same time. and make the texture across the full surface consistent. So you see I'm going all the way up to the top and pretty much touching the edges. You can see I've actually touched the edge there, so there's a little ridge of paint on the side there. Which that's fine, you know, it doesn't matter. What we're aiming for is I've got a nice hair in the paint there as well. Don't know where that came from. Wasn't one of mine. I'm not balding just yet. I'm very grey, but not balding. Anyway, so as you can see, we now have a consistent, nice, pretty looking texture without all them brush strokes. Without all them brush strokes that you saw earlier on in the video. Stupid hair. Right, so that is the process. I should have really explained that long ago, like on the first coat. I should have explained that. But now I've got these ridges, I need to be very careful and get rid of them ridges, which would naturally happen as I'm rollering these sides anyway. Which is again why you start in the middle, because any overlap you get onto the sides, you automatically get rid of them as you paint in the edges. You see what I mean? So the order of things is important as well to get that nice finish. So it is important you do the brush first, because then the roller goes over the top and gets rid of that brush texture. It's important you do the inside first, because any overlap and ridges of paint that get on the outside automatically disappear with the painting of the outside. You see what I mean? When you paint on the outside, you don't get a ridge of paint on the inside, but you can get a ridge of paint on the outside when you paint on the inside, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, that's the logic and the process and how you get a nice sort of professional standard finish without all them nasty looking brush marks that an inexperienced painter would leave, or a non-professional painter. I keep using the word DIYer, I realise, but there's nothing wrong with a DIYer, you know. There's some very good quality DIYers out there, but you know, somebody who doesn't know about painting would paint that with the brush, blabber it all over, leave loads of brush marks, loads of horrible texture, and then get to the end and be like, oh yeah, I've done a great job there. Not even knowing that they haven't done a good job, you see what I mean? So anyway, that is the logic behind the process and why we do it and how we do it. So now I'm going to put you back on times 20. So you can watch me going at 100 miles an hour again. Then so we are back onto painting again. This has had the 2 primer undercoats that you saw, and it's had 1 gloss coat. It's actually looking pretty good already, I've got to say. Not perfect, so it's definitely going to need another coat, but I think we might not have to do the 5th coat on this. I've been very careful with all 3 coats so far to make sure I've got really good coverage. I've put it on quite thick and spread it out quite evenly, which really helps on getting things done in a fewer amount of coats. I mean, you can see, I don't know if you can see on the video, but you can just see little slight changes in colour in some areas, which we call it grinning through. So we say that the base colour, like the MDF colour, is grinning through the paint. So that's what we're going to do the last coat for, just to get rid of that grinning paint, the grinning colour coming through. At this stage, a lot of decorators would also give the paint a very slight or very gentle sanding with some very fine sandpaper. And that's because a lot of, well, at this stage, especially on jobs where it's really dusty and there's a lot of stuff going on, you end up with loads of little bits in the paint that you just want to sand off before you put that final coat on, or bits of texture in the paint that maybe you've missed where you've got a drip or I don't know, stuff like that. But looking at the quality and the texture of this paint, it's pretty much flawless. I'm very happy. Well, that one little bit I just picked off. That's gone now. Yeah, I'm really happy with the texture as it is. I don't think I need to sand it to make. Sanding it isn't going to improve the texture because it's already pretty much perfect. So I would be wasting my time doing that. One little bit there as well. I don't know if you can see that. There you go. Look. So it's things like that. That's why you'd normally give it a sanding coat. But that can literally just be picked off. And that's now gone, and then with the next coat that'll be totally disappeared. So apart from the 2 bits that I've seen, I can't really see any other reason why I would need to sand it. Yeah, no, it's perfect. I'm happy with it. So no sanding required on this occasion. A lot of the time it would need just that, like I said, that light sanding with a fine sandpaper, like a 240 grit, 180 grit, something like that. But on this occasion, not necessary. So trying a slight change of plan. I'm not going to do the next coat of paint just yet. I'm going to drill the holes for the handles first. Reason being, while I'm drilling, if I damage or scuff the surrounding paintwork, then it will get sorted out as part of the next coat of paint anyway. So it's always good to do these things and then paint afterwards. Otherwise, I'll end up painting it. Because if I scuff here, for example, doing it, and then just try painting over that scuff, it's gonna look. It never kind of blends in with the surrounding paint perfectly. You see what I mean? So it's always better to do one full coat so it all matches rather than trying to touch up, especially on this kind of paint, like the glossy paint. So to do this, all we need is a drill bit, which matches the size of the screw. That's the screw we're going to be using. I'm going to have to cut that down because it's a bit too long. Maybe that one's a bit too big. Actually, no, that'll be fine. So all I'm going to do at this stage is just drill the holes for the screws to go in. I'm not going to fit the handles. I'm just going to drill the holes ready for the handles to go in. So I'm going to put you back on the tripod and I'll show you exactly how I do that. Right, so the clue is in the name, drill the holes. I need my drill. I'm going to grab my drill. Now I've checked the other cupboards that I'm trying to match that I showed you earlier in the video, and the handles were pretty much bang in the middle of the centre, the cross section there. So I'm going to do the same. So you kind of got two options with that. You can use a tape measure, or for me, I like to use a set square. Just feel it's a bit more accurate. So we know we've got 6 centimetres to the line, so we want to do it halfway at 3 centimetres. I also know this is 6 centimetres, so I want to do that at 3 centimetres as well. You see what I mean? So line that up on there, and go 3 centimetres. Oh, I do the wrong way around. Go 3 centimetres down. So we're going 3 down, and we're going 3 in, 3 centimetres in. And that should give us the exact point we want to be at, in theory. Does that look right? The bigger of the two dot looks perfect to me. I can always check it with a tape measure just to be sure. So what we're saying, measure twice, cut once, yeah, 3, 3, and 3, yeah, perfect. So then we drill it. And again, I'm going to use the hoover. I always use the hoover when drilling. Because I don't want dust going all over my paint, you know what I mean? Just make sure you can actually see what I'm doing there. Yeah. I'm going to show you another little trick in a minute as well. Tricks of the trade, as they say. And the first trick is always turn the hoover on. Right, so the trick of the trade is, I have not drilled all the way through the door there. I'm going to show you what I mean. If you have a look at the end of that, I don't know if you can see that. You can. You see how it's got a pointy, you can just about see it, I'm not really focused very well. So it's got that pointy, spiky bit. As I was drilling through the door, I had my finger on the other side, and as soon as I felt that pointy, spiky bit come through, I stopped. And the reason for that is if I'd have carried on, I wouldn't have drilled a nice hole. One second. Anyway, let me carry on before I was rudely interrupted with my shouting and screaming colleague. This is a refurbishment with quite a lot of people here, as you'd expect. There's always a bit of noise. Anyway, so what I was saying, the spiky bit, I felt that come through the back of the door. And the reason I stopped is because we drilled the last bit from the back of the door. So where that spiky bit came through, make sure you can actually see that. Let me show you. Might not be able to see, but you can see where my smudgy finger mark is on the door. I'm going to repaint that as well, obviously. So now I drill from this side, drilling straight into that tiny little hole where the spike came through. And there you go. The reason you do that is so the pressure and the force of the drill pushing through when it comes out the back, if you don't stop by the way I did, would end up with a big chunk of wood missing out the back of the door. Rather than just a nice neat hole that'll be hidden by the handle, you'd have a chunk of wood just pops off. So it's just a way of getting a nicer, neater looking hole without the door falling apart, basically. So that's that little trick for you. I'll do the next one at times 20 probably. Alright then, on with the final coat of paint. Well, hopefully it'll be the final coat of paint. See what it looks like once it's fully dry. If it looks perfect, we're finished. If it doesn't look perfect, we're doing another one. Alright then, good morning to you. This is the next day from the last video. So the paint's had full time to dry on the doors. And I've got to say, it is looking pretty good. Perfect, really happy with it. There's nothing grinning through. Just looks like it's had its full amount of coats. Texture's great, everything, just really happy with it. It looks cracking. I do need to put the handles on, and I do need a slight adjustment on the hinges again. Like I said before, when you paint, the doors change shape anyway. So the top, I don't know, see if I can zoom in a little bit. The top there is just rubbing on the shelf just a little bit. You see on that right hand door, just in the top left hand corner of the right hand door. So I just need to adjust the hinges very slightly once the handles are on. Other than that, I think we're looking very, very good. So it will be handles and hinge adjustments, and then this job is done. So I'm going to show you how to fit the handles next. Right then, so handles, we have, I'll say handle, more of a door knob than a handle, isn't it? Door knob. Matches quite closely with what's in the other room that we're matching to. Now we've got the bolt. The bolt obviously slides through the hole that you saw me drilling already. However, let me show you, if you look how far that bolt comes out, let me zoom in a little bit. Look how far that bolt comes out of the hole. It is very, very long. So this handle is going to end up about here, which will look ridiculous. And it's not what we want. Oops. Anyway, so what we need to do obviously is we need to cut the handle down. Sorry, the bolt down for the handle. So to do that, we put the handle in position, screw it all the way in, which we're currently doing. Push it all the way out. So we know that gap between door and handle is the bit we need to cut off. We need that bit gone. So we do the old measuring technique. So that is 28 millimeters, but we're going to go 30 millimeters because it gives a bit of play, because we know there's quite a lot of the bolt inside the handle as well. So we need to cut the bolt down by 30 mil, so 3 centimeters. I'll put you on pause. Alright, to do that, it is the same tool we use for cutting the hanging rail, which is the little hacksaw, metal saw. It really is just again a bit of elbow grease. Like the 30 mil. Put your finger there. Use your finger as the saw guide, as always. Start cutting. You try not to cut your finger off at the same time. Can be quite useful to get a set of grips to hold the bolt with, which I would normally do, but I'm on the 3rd floor and my grips are on the ground floor, so I'm just doing it by hand rather than getting the grips. Right, I'm going to speed this bit up. You don't need to watch me sawing through a bolt. I'll do the second one speeded up as well, so I'll do the whole lot. From now on, it's going to be speeded up. Right then, so I would say we are finished. I think it's very nice. I'm very happy with it. As you just saw me adjusting the hinges so the top's not rubbing on the shelf anymore. Handles are on and looking good. Paintwork is finished and looking sharp. Yeah, very pleased with it. Nice little cupboard. Very nice. Very long video though. If you've sat there and watched through all this video, fair play to you. If you are thinking of making your own shaker style doors, then hopefully it helped. I'll probably split it down into different videos anyway, as well as the long one. There you go. Okay, thank you very much for watching, and yeah, hope you might have learned something or might have helped in some way. Okay, goodbye for now. See you on the next video.